So I'm sure that this is a bit subjective and not everybody's going to agree with me, but I've always found that personally, the state of my home very much reflects the state of my mind. When things are in disarray in my house, when things are cluttered and chaotic and messy, I tend to find that I feel cluttered and distracted and unable to focus properly, and it really just makes me feel not as good as I could. Likewise, if I find myself in a bad mood, I'm more inclined to let things slide at home, to let things pile up and get a little cluttered and a little messy, and it doesn't help me to get out of that bad mood, that's for sure. With all of that said, life happens, and sometimes things get busy and we let our priorities slide, and stuff just happens that we can't always control. But over the past few years, I've developed a couple rules that I call personal policies. By following these personal policies, I'm able to keep things under control at home a little bit better, which I find subsequently helps my mood a whole lot. And if for some reason I am in a bad mood, I know at the very least that I've done what I can to control it, and I'm not going to come home and feel a lot worse realizing that I'm living in a mess. So let's jump right into them. Here are the 5 rules that I follow on a day-to-day basis to help keep both my home and my brain as clutter-free as humanly possible. Rule number 1 is set a timer and get it done. If I find that there's a task that I need to do that I'm just really dreading and procrastinating about, I find one of the best ways to motivate myself to do it is to set a timer for a very short, reasonable window of time and tell myself that I'm going to do it for at least that amount of time, and then when the timer stops, if I really want to stop, I can stop. But most of the time, once I've started, it's really easy just to keep going. And I do find that as a whole, that starting is sometimes the hardest part when it comes to things that we are procrastinating on. So for example, if I need to fold a bunch of laundry and I'm just really dreading doing it, I might set a timer on my phone for 2 minutes and tell myself, okay, fine, I'm gonna spend just 2 minutes folding the laundry. It's a really low barrier to entry and it reduces a lot of friction because 2 minutes is a very, very reasonable, very short period of time to commit to doing something. Even if you don't want to do it, I think we can all just handle 2 minutes. So I'll set a timer on my phone and tell myself I'm going to give myself 2 minutes to start folding laundry. And once that timer goes off at the 2-minute mark, if I really want to stop, I can stop. I find this rule is also really helpful in gamifying things that you find to be unpleasant. So again, my example is folding laundry. You can use this for washing dishes. You can use this for pretty much anything that you don't enjoy doing, where not only does it give you the motivation just to get started with a low commitment, but you can actually make it a game to see how much you can get done in that short window of time. So whether you set a timer for 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever time frame makes sense to you, see how much you can actually accomplish there, and then see if the next time you can get it done even a little bit faster and maybe beat the timer. But yeah, set a timer and get it done. And like me, you'll probably find that it's actually pretty easy to do things once you just get started. Personal policy number 2 is something that I actually borrowed from Matt D'Avella. I believe he calls it the 2-day rule, and he uses it in reference to his workouts, where if he allows himself to skip a day at the gym, that's fine, but he never allows himself to skip 2 days in a row. So I've taken the same idea and I apply it to things in my life. There are certain habits and routines that I follow on a day-to-day basis, some of them relevant to, again, the tidiness of my home, some of them relevant to my health, some of them relevant to my work, relevant to all sorts of different things. But unfortunately, sometimes life happens and we can't be on the ball all the time 100% of the way. So sometimes we have to skip things, and that's okay, but I have made it a personal policy never to skip things 2 days in a row or twice in a row, whatever that may be. So for example, I tend to take vitamins every day. I take some vitamin C, and every once in a while I'll get into bed at night and realize that I've forgotten to take them for the day. And that's okay. I'm not gonna drag myself out of bed to go get my vitamin C at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I make sure that if I missed it one day, I'm never allowed to miss it 2 days in a row. So if I do happen to forget the next day, then yes, I will drag myself out of bed to go get them, because you can't skip 2 days. I also apply this to things like brushing Levi's teeth. I typically brush his teeth every night before we go to bed, and very rarely, once in a while, I just get really tired and he's already sleeping and I don't want to disturb him, so I'll just get into bed without brushing his teeth. But I never let 2 days go in a row without doing that. And this can apply to all sorts of things in your life. Again, whether it is your workout schedule, whether it is maybe ordering takeout, maybe you allow yourself to order takeout once but not 2 days in a row. You can use it however you need to, but I find that that really gives you the ability to feel a little bit of flexibility, to understand that sometimes life happens and things that you can't control get in the way, or you're tired, or you're having an off day, and you're human, and that's okay. But by never allowing yourself to skip these things twice in a row, it stops you from completely falling off of the wagon of the things that are the most important in your life. The third rule is something that is talked a lot about in the productivity space, whether we're talking about books, YouTube videos, Reddit, anywhere that you might be active in the habit building and productivity space. You've probably heard the idea of if it takes X amount of time or less, just do it now. And I've heard various variations of this, like if it takes less than 5 minutes, do it now. If it takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. So I've set a pretty low barrier here, and I say if it takes less than 1 minute, just do it now. So this works really well for all those little things that you know are absolutely no big deal, but you're just feeling lazy about. Something like hanging up your jacket or putting away your shoes or wiping down the counters after a meal. If I see something that needs to be done, it's really easy for me just to be like, okay, I'll deal with it later, or I'll deal with it tomorrow, or I'll deal with it in the morning. But if it takes less than 1 minute for me to do it, then I just do it now, because a minute is a minute, and it's much easier just to keep on top of things than it is to let them pile up. Washing one dish might take you 30 seconds, but if you just leave it in the sink, tomorrow you're gonna have to wash 2 dishes. And before you know it, you're gonna have 5 or 10 or 20 dishes to wash, and you're not gonna have any clean dishes to eat off of, first of all, but you're gonna have to spend like half an hour washing dishes when you could have just gotten it under control from the start. So if it takes less than a single minute to do something, just do it.
Just do it!
Rule number 4 is a bit more of a tricky one and really comes more down to your mental state than your home, but it is something that I have been working on for a very long time now, and I'm getting better and better at it, and if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. So this is something that I apply to invitations, requests for favors, commitments of any sort, where if I'm not really enthusiastic about something, if it's not like hell yes, I absolutely want to do that, it's going to be a no. It is very easy to just become a yes man, to become a people pleaser, and to just say yes to whatever somebody asks of you because you don't want to let them down or you feel awkward about saying no. And this gets old very, very quickly. Before you know it, you have committed yourself to things that you don't want to do. And as uncomfortable as it might have been right in that moment to say no, I can promise you from firsthand experience that it is so much worse to have to ruminate over this commitment that you've made that you didn't want to do for days or weeks or months until it's over. And when you're in that stage, you wish more than anything that you just said no right from the start, so you didn't have to feel this way for so long, you didn't have to think about it for so long, you didn't have to feel so crappy about it. And so in my case, I use this both for work and my personal life, whether I get a client request or a social invitation or what have you. If something just feels off, if it's something that I'm just not enthusiastic about having to do, if it's not a hell yes, it's gonna be a no from me, dog.
It's definitely a no for me, dog.
And by the way, I'll be the first to admit that it can still sometimes feel uncomfortable and a little bit awkward, but it is so much better than feeling regret. And finally, personal policy number 5 that I use to keep my shit together is never go to bed with a dirty kitchen. This personal policy is of particular importance to me because I tend to work a lot of evenings, and so understandably, by the time I get home at night and I cook dinner, it's quite late, and I'm often really tired, and it would be very easy for me just to like go to bed and deal with all the mess in the morning. But as I talked about before, I personally find that waking up in the morning to a mess just completely ruins my day. It completely sets the mood for how I'm gonna feel the rest of that day, and not in a good way. This becomes an even bigger issue if I happen to sleep in a little bit too late, or if I have to start work a little earlier and I don't have time to deal with it in the morning, and then by the time the next night rolls around, now I have 24 hours of old dirty dishes and stinky stuff to deal with, and maybe then I go to bed again, and again, it can just get out of hand really, really quickly. In all honesty, I find that regardless of what an elaborate meal I may or may not have cooked for myself, most of the time it only takes me about 5 to 10 minutes to get the kitchen fully cleaned up to at least a reasonable degree, meaning getting the dirty dishes into the dishwasher, taking out the garbage if it needs to be taken out, getting all of the condiments and leftovers into the fridge, and then quickly wiping down the counters. That way, at the very least, when I wake up the next morning, I'm not dealing with dirty dishes that have food caked on and I have to now scrub and soak. I'm not dealing with a rotten, stinking garbage bag. I'm not dealing with crumbs and debris all over the kitchen, and I can start my day, at the very least, in a clean environment. Personally, these 5 rules have had an immeasurably positive impact on my day-to-day life and on my mental clarity and just on keeping my house reasonably clean and tidy. I'm sure that as time goes by, I will change or tweak things, or I might add more rules to the list, but for now, these are the 5 things that I do to just keep my life together, keep my shit together, and keep myself feeling as human as possible. If you have any similar habits or routines that you follow on a day-to-day basis to help keep your life in order, I would love to hear about them in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video at all, if you found any value in it, please go ahead and hit that like button. Every like that I get helps me out tremendously, and I really appreciate it. If you haven't done so yet, maybe also consider subscribing. The little red button's down there. It takes half a second to click it, and that means that you will get to keep up to date on all of my videos about minimalism, personal finance, investing, habit change, all that good stuff. I'm getting very, very close to 1,000 subscribers, and so I very much appreciate all you guys coming along on this journey with me. Feel free to follow me on Instagram as well at according_to_Nicole. Other than that, thank you guys so much as always for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next week.